I get lots of emails every day, lots of different communication with different clients. They're sending me links, they're sending me attachments. I build websites, I do all sorts of things for different businesses. So there's a lot of information that's transferred back and forth. The email that came from a client's email address, or so it looked to be, but it was her domain, and it was also connected to an ongoing conversation that we had been having. There wasn't anything that really flagged as something odd or different about the email. It said, here is somebody's headshot, and I clicked it to download the picture. The one thing I thought that was sort of odd, that doesn't typically happen, is that nothing actually happened when I opened the link. And so I responded back to her and said simply, hey, the link didn't work, can you send it as an attachment? A few seconds later, there was a pop-up that came across my screen that said Chrome installs have been updated, which usually that sort of thing will happen ongoing. I do recall thinking that it was weird because it was a different color, but then I had also gotten a new laptop, so I discounted it as being a part of it and moved on. About 3 weeks later, I went to pay a personal bill, my cell phone bill, and there was nothing in my bank account. Immediately, I started to backtrack, thinking, how did this happen? I went into my bank account and I noticed there were some e-transfers that were sent to one individual that I did not recognize, and obviously called my bank immediately to report it as fraud. When I spoke to the people at the bank, they also told me to phone the RCMP right away. The day prior, I had gotten some notifications that passwords were changed on PayPal, and I just reported them as not being me and moved on. But all those pieces of evidence, bringing them together, I was under the assumption that something had gone awry. And the only thing that I knew was that I remember the Chrome setting. It sort of clued into me that that might have actually been a virus. And it was good that I had recognized it, because when I brought an individual in to help me with the computer, because obviously there was an embedded virus, a very sophisticated one, in my laptop, me being able to go back to that specific email enabled us to actually track the virus in my system. And I was able to have it extracted and actually give it to the RCMP as part of the investigation. I felt very, very violated, obviously, because they had been able to get in and see all of my passwords from the moment it happened, and I could track it to when they actually did something. They had been in my computer for 3 weeks. A couple days after I noticed it and opened the police case, I actually got a phone call here at the office from a woman who tracked me down from the URL on my email address. She called and said, I think I've been involved in some type of fraud where any e-transfer sent out of your banking to somebody. It turned out that this woman who phoned was the recipient of the e-transfers that had come out of my bank account. She had been contacted by a faux employer out of Eastern Canada for a job. And part of her first assignment in this sales transaction was to collect funds from investors that were going to be coming her way. And she needed to provide an investment on her end, take all of the cash as cash, and go to a specific bank and deposit it into a specific bank account as her first sales transaction. So it turned into being a much bigger operation, obviously. The domain that had been hacked was an open domain while it was being switched to a new website, and that's how the hackers were able to get in and attach themselves to the domain. And I was able to get my money back from the bank, so that was good for me, and I felt okay. But just that period of time when they were in my personal information didn't feel very good. I guess in hindsight, I was surprised how sophisticated it was. Number one lesson, I know it's very convenient to save passwords in your browser. Have a password cheat sheet somewhere else. Don't save them in there. You never know, somebody can be in your system and you would have absolutely no idea. Going through your banking information, there was no indication that that had been going on for weeks. So never save your passwords in your browser. Another thing to pay attention to, if you click on something and you think in the moment that you maybe shouldn't have clicked on it, or you thought, should or shouldn't I, and you do it anyways, and either nothing happens or there's something that downloads or functions in a way that is not consistent with what you're used to, I would say that that's a good tip that something's been put into your system. When you get emails from outside sources and somebody or something you don't recognize is sending you something that has a link, don't click on it. If you've clicked on something and you're suspicious of whether or not it may have put anything in your system, if you don't have an IT person or somebody to contact, it's probably good due diligence to go back and change all of your passwords in your system, especially if you have them saved in your browser.